welcome to Eden Fractal, the 76th meeting. I'm here with great friends Eric and Rosmari. We've been catching up and hearing a little bit of Eric's history and Eric's experience with building and coordinating both buildings and communities. Perhaps we'll get more into it later. And we also have some topics I proposed in the agenda today, following up on our discussion from last week about next steps, next season for Eden Fractal and mission and intents and so forth. So we're getting into those. We will probably skip the respect game today. There's just 3 of us here, so we're going to mostly plan out our next steps, but we'll see, and we'll play it by ear. Rosmari and Eric, thanks so much for joining and being here with us at Eden Fractal. Feel free to say hello if you'd like. Also, thank you everybody for watching, and hopefully you're having a fantastic day out there, and thanks for being here with us. I suppose I'll get into the presentation now, but Rosmari, Eric, feel free to jump in if there's anything you'd like to say. Otherwise, I'll give a little overview of what we've been up to lately and what we'll probably talk about today. All right, so EdenFractal.com, our familiar friend where we like to start off. Eden Fractal, a community of innovative game shows and tools. As we discussed last week, there's been less attendance in this community lately, at least for these meetings. There's still been a lot of people watching along and so forth, but we've had less people. But over the course of the community, over the past year and a half, there's been about 80 people who participate in this, and we are producing all the videos and all the great content that we're doing. You can explore the website to learn more. Also, I was scrolling down here and some of the things weren't loaded, but there's lots of articles to learn about the games and the shows and the tools that we have been building, and great community leaders and builders and creators in the community have been building as well. So I encourage you to check it out and share with friends and explore all the cool things that we're doing. You can check out edenfractal.com/videos to see the most recent videos we've been publishing. There's actually one more here that Rosmari recently published about fractal sports, about how fractals can get organized, where we discussed fractal sprout, DAOs, optimistics, events, and communicating the fractal journey using a scoreboard and looking at fractal sports. We're still working on this. We just kind of put it up pretty quickly, so we'll refine the language there a little bit, and we're also working getting out the last 2 episodes. But well, for a while we talked about optimism and alien world stuff and creating public goods and regeneration nation stuff like that. And over the past few weeks, we've been discussing the next steps about Eden Fractal, this idea of seasons, and looking about Eden Fractal and consensus games as sports. So that's something that I think we'll get into a bit more today. We do meet every Wednesday at 16 UTC. I encourage you to check out lou.ma/Eden Fractal and welcome you to register for weekly reminders and share with friends, to join the meetings and participate in this amazing story we're sharing. And check out t.me/Eden Fractal, our chat group, where you can learn more. Feel free to ask any questions. You can see Rosmari's reminder posts and publication of the episodes and so forth every week here. And you can watch all of our episodes on our YouTube channel to youtube.com/@Eden Creators, where you can see all the Eden Fractal meetings back in the first Eden Fractal meeting a long time ago, and also all the new Optimism Fractal meetings that we're now hosting as well on Mondays, as well as our shows like Fractal Apple, Growing with Optimism, Eden Town Halls, Creator Talk, Community Stories, a bunch of other great stuff. Eric's also got a great channel too that I recommend checking out too, at Eric Weststrike on YouTube, where you can see the open mics he's been hosting and all sorts of great stuff like the Fractal Palooza. Yeah, we're going to be publishing last week's meeting. I kind of gave a recap already, but last week's meeting was kind of a continuation of the 73rd meeting, where we were talking with Tadas and Gudasol about best next steps for Eden Fractal and mission. There were some proposals there, and we had lots of really interesting discussions. So huge thanks to Rosmari and Eric, as well as Tadas and Gudasol for all the great ideas. Normally, we'd go into breakout rooms and play the respect game, which we also sometimes call Eden plus Fractal, because we elect delegates at the same time. But as I said before, we'll probably just have a brainstorming session, so we won't get into this right now. But maybe if more people join, then maybe we will. So what we'll probably do is jump right into the Cagendas game. And of course, we can play it pretty informally. So Rosmari and Eric, if you have some other topics on your mind that you want to discuss, then feel free to bring them up and we can get into them. But otherwise, we can get into the Cagendas game, which is a social coordination game that helps communities create agendas and choose discussion topics and make decisions together. Basically, what we do is we put a poll on Consortium, as you all know by now, unless it's your first time watching, and then we can vote on the polls, and whichever poll gets the most votes, we will discuss first. In this case, I just put up 3 proposals right before we met. So the first one is Eden Fractal's mission is to grow fractal communities. This was a refinement from last week's mission or proposal that I made to grow fractal communities and make the best experience possible. I just made it simple, and I think it pretty succinctly explains the inherent mission of Eden Fractal and provides many benefits that will help the community for greater success, help guide our community to greater success. And I also wrote some notes about this in a Notion page over here that you can learn, and we can go through. I wrote some benefits about why I think that this is good for a mission. We've been talking about mission a lot, by the way. If you go to edencreators.com/mission, you can see like 5 or 6 or 7 episodes of Eden Fractal where we had discussions with dozens of community leaders and weighing in on what should be the mission of Eden Fractal, and we've never quite reached consensus. There's also some notes here about how we can change in the future and how I think this can work with the idea of the intents and seasons. And then I wrote some like to-do notes about providing more details with the mission, defining exactly what a fractal community is. I think it's basically a community that plays a respect game in meetings, in recurring meetings, to collaborate and achieve their goals. This is also work in progress too, so I'm open to different ideas. And then I was also thinking some other ideas we can get more into. I made another proposal for Eden Fractal's next season intents, where I suggested that we set 4 intents to achieve our mission during a 3-month season or 90-day season of Eden Fractal in early 2024. And the 4 suggested intents are to fund fractal participants, foster fractal events, build fractal tools, and create fractal media. This is all media tools and events, and funding participants who play fractal consensus games like the respect game, games that help people create public goods and coordinate for mutual benefit. And I wrote that each of these intents should have some goals that we collectively work towards throughout the season, and some metrics where we can measure our progress, and that'll help us create unstoppable momentum and make the best experience possible for all with fractal communities. And I also wrote more about this on another Notion page as well. This was very much inspired by our last week's discussion, and once again, I'm open to different ideas, but this is just what seems to make the most sense to me right now. We can discuss in future weeks, but I think this could be really helpful. It's modeled off of the Optimism Collective, where there are 4 collects with their 4 intents. Eric said that's kind of a lot, but I think that we could probably do it. And so I wrote some more ideas here, and we can get more in detail. I shared the link in the Telegram group about how we can have this season where we can experiment with new kinds of consensus games and perhaps playoffs or tournaments and awards to recognize the top contributors for fractal communities, and then how we can basically like keep track of these things and have weekly reports. So we're all working towards collective goals. We all want people who are in fractal communities to get funded and receive funding. And we've done that to some extent so far, but we really want to help raise more funding for what we're doing, because these consensus games are profoundly helpful for all and it needs more funding. So that's one of the main intents here. And we can measure that according to like who's passing proposals to get funded, or if we work at something with public goods funding mechanisms like Retro PGF and Gitcoin and so forth. Fractal events, we want to grow more communities as well who are hosting fractal events, whether they call it fractals or not, but playing the respect game basically. There's some great points in recent meetings how we're like making a lot of progress, but it's not really all put together. Like people don't hear it all in one common narrative because it's not well curated. Like we publish the videos every week, but I think like putting together an article at the end of each season and working towards these goals specifically and measuring our progress would be helpful. So for example, fractal events, in the past few months, we've had several fractals start up. Like Joe started up the Upland Fractal. We started up the Optimism Fractal, or I should say Upland Aliens. And there's also the AW Fractal too, the Alien World Fractal. And all of these are working and thriving to various degrees, I think at least. And they've all had some measure of success and are quite exciting. But these are things that we could measure, like how many people are playing and so forth. How many times are people playing these games? How many hours are people playing these games? How much are people enjoying them? It should be very fun and joyful, which is a big thing. People should enjoy it while they're doing it, so we can measure that to the best of our extent. Some of these will be qualitative, more qualitative than quantitative, some that we can measure. We can also do like forums and stuff like census results or surveys rather to help people understand it. Fractal media, this is stuff that we've also been doing for Optimism Collective as we've been making our grants there, like counting how many articles and videos we've been creating and how many people are reading and viewing these and how people are getting inspired by these. So that can be one of the intents too, because this helps spread fractals and helps grow fractal communities. And fractal tools, basically people like Vlad and Tadas and Matthias and many other great builders have been building fractal tools. Also the Sync team too, who recently launched the new Sync fractals too. So all of these fractals we could kind of serve as a role where we're helping to inspire and lead an example, and specifically setting goals to help all these different fractals with tools and media and more events and funding. I think those would be some cool events to go along with this mission of growing fractal communities. And if we orient those around those in the 2024 season, we spend the next few weeks planning it out, and then we get going with it. I think that would be a really great way to rally the community. And then lastly, rally the community and grow fractal communities and make the best experience possible. And then lastly, I have a proposal about the topics game over here too. As we often play the topics game, you can see in the agenda topics overview section. We previously discussed this in 62nd meeting, 63rd meeting. We do this pretty often now, so you can click on these links if you want to learn more about how this topic games works, but it's just kind of a different way of doing it. Rather than just posting on Consortium, we can also post topics on Notion as well and organize them better there. So you can watch where we previously discussed this in our 59th meeting, Agenda Games, and our 62nd meeting about new topics game. I see Gudasol is joining, so we'll welcome him in a moment. But the other topics that we had here on the agenda, one, there's also a project for creating plans for Eden Fractal's mission and intents. So we've been starting to use Notion more as a community. And so I added this to the Eden Fractal Notion page to create plans for Eden Fractal's mission and intents and seasons. And I included those topics about proposing Eden Fractal's mission to grow fractal communities and the topic about Eden Fractal's next season intents, which you can click there. And then I also included just some other notes and ideas from last week that we had and over the past few weeks, like potentially changing the time or the cadence of meetings and stuff like that. There's lots of things we can consider. So this is up on the Notion for the Eden Fractal community, so you can check it out and feel free to leave any comments or make any edits. There's a bunch of people in the community who already have access, and if you don't have access and if you're a community member, then feel free to reach out and you can have access to this Eden Fractal Notion as well as this project about creating plans for Eden Fractal's mission, intents, and seasons. And then I also had some updates about the respect and EOS distribution and MSIG updates. We haven't done that for the past like 12 weeks now because there's all sorts of issues. We're changing the MSIG, and then there was technical issues where we've got 4 out of 6 MSIG signers, we need 5 out of 6, and I've been trying to reach out to people to sign it and make it happen, but it's not there yet. But I did create the on-chain proposals for the past 12 weeks to distribute the EOS and respect. So I'm going to be working to send that out to people or send that out in the consensus results chat. There's also a couple complexities too, because, well, I won't get into details unless we want to, but we can go into more details here. But that's basically still a work in progress is the main point from here. And then a couple of other funding and growth opportunities that I figure are worthy to mention and also go along with our ideas about that proposed or suggested core intent of funding. One, Polygon, which is one of the largest blockchains and cryptocurrencies, or Matic is a cryptocurrency, I guess, but Polygon is a blockchain in the Web3 community. They're top 10 by market cap. They recently announced yesterday or 2 days ago Polygon Village, which has about $110 million worth of Polygon tokens that they're funding builders on Polygon. So now after Tadas built the EVM tools, smart contracts to operate consensus games with the Eden Fractal, now those can be ported over to other chains like Polygon. So that's a funding opportunity that I'm going to be looking into. There's a deadline on the 30th for a $160,000 matching pool, like with quadratic funding, kind of like Gitcoin and Pomelo. So that's an opportunity, and then there's going to be more announced soon. So I want to let you know. And then also Octant is another public goods funding source that has something like 250 ETH worth of funding coming up in the next couple months, which is, I don't know, like $700,000, something like that. They just distributed the first round. It looked really exciting. They distributed to public goods creators like Gitcoin and like Giveth and so forth. So I think it's a good opportunity for us at some point to reach out and get involved with that. So I just want to make you aware that deadline to participate or sign up for that is December 20th. And there's also links here too. If you can't see these pages, then I can share them, but you should be able to click there. And then there's some links where you can learn more. I could actually click these and then like for both these, for applying for Polygon and for applying for Octant, there's some links here. I have some reminders for myself up, and then I have some more pages too. So I had to organize it better, but basically you can find it there, and I'm happy to go into these more in detail as well. I have a little TLDR as well as some to-do notes for myself. And then there's also a page here where I can see some tweets, and so you can see and learn more. There's also like a startup program too that they are offering like consulting services and helping with like kind of more personal support too. So might be interesting to check out Polygon. I know a lot of great builders are there, and as an opportunity that I wanted to present to the community and everybody watching, and looking forward to discussing that. And then lastly, Tadas isn't here. I was just speaking with Tadas, and he's busy with a lot of exciting stuff, I suppose. We're working on collaborating on that stuff in Notion, but he did bring up the higher order fractals, and we still haven't really gotten into that. And I think that can go along with what we're talking about with Eden Fractal serving as kind of a higher order fractal and helping all fractals. But I suppose we could also save that for next time when Tadas is here. So those are the topics that we could discuss. We do have 4 people now. Welcome, Gudasol. So thanks for joining. Really appreciate it. Gudasol hosted a great Aqueduct meeting yesterday about authentic self and stuff like that. So we can also talk about that. So we just gave a little overview of what we're discussing, or what's the proposal topics, but also just the 4 of us here, so we can have informal conversation, but very curious to hear your thoughts about those topics. If you have any, we'd be happy to go over any of them in more detail if you'd like. And then lastly, before we get into it, well, for one thing, we could play the respect game, but I think when it was just 3 of us, we decided probably not to play the respect game, but that's still an option if we want to. We do have now 4 of us, and we could share it about that. And then also the other things I want to mention too while I'm still here is upcoming meetings. So Gudasol hosts the Aqueduct meeting every Tuesday at 16 UTC, which you can learn at lu.ma/aqueduct. I believe, is the place to learn about it. And then Eric is hosting a meeting right after today's meeting as well. So I encourage you to register for Aqueduct. Really great experiences there. And he's been publishing the videos on the Aqueduct YouTube channel, or maybe the Aquarius Academy YouTube channel. Feel free to correct me if you'd like. And then we're hosting an Optimism Fractal meeting every Mondays at 17 UTC as well. The last meeting was really awesome, and we have lots of really exciting plans for the upcoming ones too. So I encourage you to join the Optimism Fractal meetings. Encourage you to join the Aqueduct meetings. You can check out Rosmari's message here and t.me/Eden Fractal 2, where we talk about how this is a great opportunity for both people who are interested in optimism and fractal communities as well, and learn more at optimismfractal.com. And you can check out Eric's event coming up, the C4G Center for Governance Proposal Workshop, coming up at 18:30 UTC today. And then you can also check out Eric's YouTube channel. If you go type in Eric's name, Eric Wistrick, and then you can find the past events he's been hosting after these Eden Fractal meetings. Really exciting. Today, we're going to be going into some proposal and funding resources with the Alien Worlds community, with Optimism community, with WAX, and so forth. So encourage you to join those. Just figured I'd put it out there right now because we've got a bunch of great events coming up throughout the week. I see Eric shared some cool things in the chat as well, so I'll take a look at that. But anyway, that's my presentation for the topics of our recent progress, where we're at with Eden Fractal, and topics I put on the agenda, and very interested to hear your thoughts. And thanks for being there. I will stop talking for a moment, and curious to hear whoever wants to jump in now. Go ahead. And if you do want to...
Can you bring up that picture I put in the chat?
Yes, I can. I will share my screen again. I'll also share the link to the mdpi.com. Looks like a link to a journal or something like that. Hold on one moment. I'll bring it up.
Yeah, that's a paper that was published by the iValue Global team. Two of the members in there. And iValue Global is an organization I'm part of that does strategic business management consulting globally.
Mm-hmm.
But this is one of my favorite pictures that the iValue Global developed, because it's simple enough, but pretty powerful.
Okay, cool. I will pull the picture up right now. This is, by the way, the article, Development of Strategic Resilience Framework for Small Businesses Post-COVID. I'll get rid of those cookies. And then the image you shared is here. I'll zoom in. Oh, not too much. Basic underlying assumptions, espouse values, artifacts. Would you like to share a little bit more about this picture?
Yeah, and the reason I brought this up, because one of the first things you brought up was mission. And one thing I think is important is a difference between a mission and a vision. You know, with this idea, we need to somehow, no matter what you call it, separate out the destination, where we're trying to go, versus what we're going to do to get there. And I view where we're going as kind of the vision, and the mission is what specifically are the functions we do. What, you know, how do you get there? And so most people actually start down at the operations side. Let's do this. Well, let's have some events, and let's do this, and then we could do that, and then we could have seasons, and then we could, you know, create events, and then we could do that. And all those things are good, but they're less powerful if they're not connected up. So when iValue Global does strategic business management consulting, we actually start at the cultural side. So it's more of the vision side and getting on board. So I view the respect game as a critical, or a very effective tool to help, not totally do it, but help build culture. Because if it's done right, you get a safe environment for people sharing information, sharing their dreams, sharing where they're going, doing what's important, creating trust and respect, which is part of culture. So, and when I talk to my friends who started very successful companies, I often ask them, you know, looking back, what would you change? And a very common answer is, I would have built culture from the start, as opposed to building an organization and saying, oh, we need a culture. How do I influence the culture? So I think the respect game fits very much into that. Now, if the idea is, if you have people, you know, who trust and respect each other and are sharing information, you can use those people to build a strategy. So that's where I think we're falling apart on the Cagendas, because you don't build strategy by saying, do we do this, yes or no? Do we do that? Yes or no? I mean, that is a final stage. But one thing we practice with the art fractal is we would get ideas and we would respect them just like we would respect people. So we would start getting our ideas together, saying, what do you think the top ideas are that encompasses what we're trying to do? And as a result of that process of people putting ideas and people ranking, and I think, Dan, you saw that when we picked art. We did the same thing with art. We said we're going to pick a t-shirt design. So everybody put in, and we just went through those to do, which design do you appreciate, or which ideas or concepts do you desire? And that turned it into finding the decision making, which moves more into the Cagendas. So I think there's something between the respect game and the Cagenda game that's missing. But somehow you need to build strategy. And you build strategy by talking about issues, not by saying yes or no. Do we do this? Yes or no? Yes vote, no vote. I think there has to be, which do you appreciate more? And that doesn't mean you throw away other things. It just means that you come up with, especially, how do you address seeming inconsistencies? Like, do you want to do marketing or do you want to save money? Well, no. The people I've been seeing really successful, they ask the question, well, how can we do marketing and save money? So you explore these things where Cagendas tends to filter that out. So that at a later stage. So once you have that strategy, now you start moving into getting more into mission, and you create a structure that supports that strategy. And then with that structure, you create the operations. That structure could be a sociocracy, holocracy, top down, whatever. It doesn't matter. And you can see there's feedback between all these, because if you change in operations, that may require a change in structure, strategy, or culture. If you change your culture, that may change your strategy. So they all impact each other. But I think we've spent a lot of time building culture, which is really good. We spent, over a year building culture, which is really good. But I don't think we've done an effective job of building strategy. And I think that may be because we've been trying to do binary decision making of let's come up with an idea, do it without discussing where we want to go and why. So I guess the summary of that is I think the vision of helping people start and be more effective in their fractals is good. I don't think we have the mission of, well, how do we do that? What services or what methods do we apply to do that? And I think, things like, find out, one function is finding out what fractals need. The other way is turning that into solutions. The other thing is, how do we execute those solutions? Are we providing software? Do we do expertise? Do we do moderating? I'm not saying we have the answers, but I think those are the questions that are critical in coming up with a mission. And so, envision, I think, more of what is the outcome? What outcomes do we want to generate? Better this, safe that. Mission is how do we do it? And then you've got goals, which I think are what specific outcomes do we want to achieve in 90 days? And then where we provide some interesting is in the structure of, how fractals run. So I think if we help fractals build, this is one idea, if they help them build the culture, strategy, the structure, and help them with the operations, do we want to do one or more of those? Anyway, I know I've been talking a lot, but hopefully that helps get some value. Anyway, I love this picture because it puts things in perspective. You can read the paper, but this picture is because the paper talks a lot more about resilience and strategy. And the reason that structure is there is so that you can anticipate disruptive changes, short-term and long-term sustainability. So resilience and sustainability is really the purpose of the paper.
Very interesting. Thanks so much for sharing, Eric. I'm going to listen to this again later and then review it and look more at the picture. And I feel honored and grateful that you share when you hear a picture with us. That's fascinating. I'll share a couple quick comments, then very interested to hear what Rosmari and Gudasol have on their mind. For one thing, we have discussed the vision a lot. I proposed the topic about the vision after you talked about that some time ago, back in like week 38 or something like that. And then we made a little article about it. It's still kind of a draft, but I wrote some thoughts that you'd shared about the mission and the vision previously, and your idea about how the vision is a destination and the mission is what you do to get there. And I like how you're defining the goals and the mission and the vision and the strategy. I think it's interesting to think about our strategy. People can watch these meetings if they want to check it out. Like, for example, EF38, we have timestamps where people talk about different things. You could watch it up. The link isn't currently working, but you could check out the Eden Fractal videos to learn that. But just want to provide a little more detail about that, about the vision. And then yeah, I was trying to achieve what you're talking about a bit with the mission, about how do we get there to the vision and the goals. About like I think that basically the four intents is that we can do all those things in parallel to some extent. Like we are creating the tools, that's been happening. Not as much me like and you. I mean, we all have been participating in developing the tools, but some people are focusing more on that, like Tadas and Vlad, where some people are focusing more on the media aspect, which is like training and so forth, or hosting the events. So I think all of those are ways to grow fractal communities, although focus is helpful too. And then your idea about changing binary decision making, I agree with that. I think it's a really good point. And I think we could do that with signals and with respect trees or some combination of those. Those are two things that we talked about. I could pull up all the links if people haven't seen them yet, but if you go to like edencreators.com/signals, for example, and respect trees, then we have lots of discussions about this that unless people have been watching or following along, it might not make so much sense. But I think it'd be really helpful to kind of like how we did our games for who gave the best speech and who had the most helpful public goods pitch. We view proposals um, not as just yes or no, but what do you prefer more, and that can help us derive our strategy, and that can help us derive our mission and vision and goals and so forth. So yeah, those are very inspiring thoughts, and I really appreciate sharing. I suppose I'll stop sharing my thoughts and would be curious if Eric, you want to follow up on any of that. And I'm very curious to hear Rosmari's and Gudasol's thoughts about both the topics I proposed, about what Eric just said there, all those great thoughts, and if you have anything else in your mind as well. Let's see, Gudasol raise his hand. Go ahead, Gudasol.
Thank you. Yeah, Eric, that was really great. I always appreciate your hat of somebody who's been through a lot with business, has a lot of business experience, and I think it's extremely valuable. I wanted to sort of follow up and ask like what you see as culture and what we can do to build culture both in fractal type organizations as well as perhaps the wider Antelope community. And yeah, my current focus project, in addition to Aquarius Academy, is Tetra. I'm also still building for CXC as well, but Tetra is like the, I guess the next version of CXC. And what I saw as failures from CXC, which is a 9-year-old company, and we've had our app live for almost 5 years now, since 2018, is I never really did a good job to build the community. I never did a good job to, these people showed up and they're like, we want to help, we want to do these things. And I just sort of failed as a leader by not having, channels to direct these people into. And one of my weaknesses is I'm actually really good at all these individual things. And then I feel like I want that structure of a culture where people can, contribute, people know exactly how they can contribute. And that's the basis of the culture. So I apologize, this question is going different ways, but the real question is like, what do you recommend to build culture? What is culture? And all those type of things.
Sure. So at its core, culture is a common set of goals and values and methods. So, at first is like, where do you want to go? Like, why are we all here? What outcome do we want to reach? But most importantly, what are our values and how we, what will we do, what won't we do, and how we're there. And So that's really the big thing on culture, is a common set of who we are, where we want to go, and what we're willing to do to get there. And I say that because, I've worked with so many organizations all over the world, small, large, government, industry, academic, nonprofit. And the number of times I see people put our values, and the problem is the values don't mean anything the way they're presented, because they're just words. Like they'll have something on there that says integrity. Okay, what does that mean? So if I say, all right, everybody, we believe in integrity, go forth and have integrity, nothing's going to happen. So one of the exercises in my business classes is I have them write down values they want for the company. And then I say, write down what you think that means. And then we give them a goal, and I have them leave the room, and I have the rest of the students pretend they're part of that. And I have them come back and said, okay, it's 6 months. What do you think happened with those instructions? And it's never what they intended, because, but customer service. Well, what do you mean? Well, the customer comes first and then they leave. And I say, so we'll go around. What did you do for customer service during the last? Say, well, I did this. And the person, was that what you intended? No. So you have to have a measurement for, so example, you say customer service is number one. Well, what does that mean? We'll take Trader Joe's, for example. Trader Joe says, if it doesn't cost anything, you can do anything without permission, without getting permission to help a customer. If you want to spend 2 hours looking through boxes in the back, you can do it. So that's an example. When you say honesty, what does that mean? Does that mean we should tell everybody everything? We should tell all our customers our problems? Oh, by the way, we're lacking in our things. We're probably having problems with this. What does it mean? How do you have some goal to measure, something to measure it? So the first is just as goals. Well, what do you think is important? Like, one of mine is transparency. In organizations, and to me, how do you measure transparency? You don't say anything to somebody and when somebody's not there that you wouldn't say when they were there. And so, that's just an example of what I mean by transparency, because I said, oh, here's the vision and here's what it means. So I think that discussion is really important, is, what do you think the values are? Because the key is values are like the respect game, because they're not all equal. What's more important and in what order? Because here's the thing, you're going to come in conflict with values. Like transparency. Oh, well, we want to be open to our customers, but I don't know that we should just say that we just had to fire somebody for, do we tell people that? The values come in place when you reach decisions which are in conflict. Because whenever you come up with a value, there's something conflict, and they're supposed to help you make a decision when that's there. There's a company that I worked with, and the basically two leaders there, when somebody would bring them a problem, they would just go, let's go our value one says what, so what does that mean? And if that doesn't answer a question, they go to value two. And that's all they did in their organization is, well, what's important and why. So in this case, what's more important? So they had one of the best jobs I've ever seen at coming up with value. So, so we all want to go here. And this is what we believe is important about this journey. We will do this, won't do that. We will prioritize this. And that brings us into the next part, which is, what is strategy? Because most people who want to have a strategy can't tell you what strategy means. So culture is, where do we want to go? What will we do, and what do we want to do, and what won't we do? What are the lines? And crossing there. What outcomes do we want? What do we want? Did that help?
Yeah, that really did help. I've been taking notes as well. I think that, yeah, I get it. Like you're first of all, like there's all these different sets of people, groups of people. So you're finding a common set or the common sets that link all the group of people to find out if this person should even be in. That serves as like the magnet. And then from that culture, in order to sort of maintain it, you have to take those vague concepts into action when they become real, in the decision-making process. So that, yeah, that's what I got.
For example, we want to protect animals, and let's say we're PETA, so we believe animals should be treated ethically. Does that mean that you go in and blow up a lab? Well,
Yeah.
you're protecting animals because you got rid of the lab, so that's part of what you're willing to do. But are you willing to destroy property or hurt people, or what are you willing to do? Oh, are you willing to go put in laws or get signatures? I mean, that's just an example.
And thank you for sharing.
All right. Thank you, Gudasol, for asking and sharing your thoughts. Much appreciated, as well as Eric for the further details. I think that's very helpful about defining culture and everything else there. So really appreciate it. Also, welcome to Tadas too. Thanks for joining and hope that you're doing well. Hey. Yeah. We were talking a little bit. I suppose you probably saw in Telegram, I proposed a mission to grow fractal communities, and we're talking about intents. Then we're talking about Eric shared some great points about culture and forming a strategy, and also relating that to the mission and the goals, and really conceptualizing it. He shared a really interesting image too. By the way, both these videos from this week's meeting and last week's meeting, we're going to publish these as soon as we can, and the last week's one is already published in unlisted mode too. So if you did want to catch up throughout this week, then we'll have that published as soon as possible, and we could always share it before it's fully published too. If you want to get more into discussion, that goes for anybody who might be watching too. Yeah, so basically that's where we're at right now. We've been talking for about an hour and 15 minutes. The last time we talked about maybe we do shorter meeting too, so we could normally would go for another 45 minutes, but we could wrap it up at any point. I'm curious, so I haven't heard thoughts from Rosmari yet today on the meeting yet. I think so. I'd be curious to hear from Rosmari or Tadas. I know we've been thinking about this a lot. We had a discussion between me and Rosmari over the weekend a lot about the next steps for Eden Fractal and the mission and so forth. So curious if you have anything you'd like to share, either related to what we discussed, what we're discussing now, or we discussed over the weekend, or anything else in your mind. And then Gudasol, of course, if you have anything else in your mind, then we'd be happy to hear it too. There's 5 of us here, so we could play the respect game, and so we haven't done that. We just jumped right into talking about it, and we kind of seemed like that was the biggest priority, but that's still an option too. But yeah, basically kind of open floor. I also wrote some other topics too, but I think those could all wait, and those are all in the Telegram chat, so click on those links and you can find them. Anybody else have anything you'd like to share here, or anything on your mind? Happy to hear it.
What do you think about doing this every week right now for Eden Fractal? Just doing this basically discussion, maybe reflection about this season of Eden Fractal and planning the next season. We're having 1 hour meeting where we simply don't play the respect game and do only this. We are already starting basically. It's just that like right now I don't know if we are going to play the respect game or not, and it's like, is it going to be 2 hours or what?
I think it might be interesting to play the respect game with vision and mission. If everybody puts in something for what they think the vision or mission is, and we respect the idea, that might be an interesting exercise.
Yeah, I think that I thought about this as respect game as well, as a way to choose something like a mission. Yeah, and then top missions from multiple groups could later be compete and so on.
Yeah, yeah, and we could start with vision first, is what outcomes do we want to have? And people could put an outcome and we could keep running those, adding to that and, running the respect of which ones do we want to have. And that could be what outcomes. And then we could go on to mission, which is what do you think we need to do to achieve those outcomes? And what I like about that is it doesn't say one answer is right. It just says, ooh, we really like this one. And oh, but those are good too. In other words, I don't want to throw away.
Yeah, I like this too. We could do it.
Yeah, it sounds interesting. And your suggestion previous to that, Das, about having for the season, just doing shorter meetings and focusing on the next steps and mission and so forth. I think that's a good idea. I don't know if we need to have full 2-hour meetings, if it's just like, say, the 5 of us or so. I mean, of course, there could be next week, there could be 10 people who show up, so we don't know. So I suppose we might want to remain flexible, because if we do wind up having 10 people, we still might want to do breakout rooms, and that's often helpful. But we could do breakout rooms just specifically, like Eric was just saying, about to rank the mission and vision and so forth. And that'd be interesting. And by the way, we do have enough delegates in attendance right now to approve a proposal we want. Basically, Rosmari is the sole delegate from the most recent week, and then me and Eric are delegates from council, and me and Rosmari are delegates from council. So if we did want to approve a proposal to formally shorten the time or change up the goal of the respect game and the game of the respect game for next week or coming weeks, then we could do that. I would suggest maybe
and I would just alternate.
what
People
alternate?
I dare respect people. I play the respect game with people, and then next week I would just play the respect game with ideas.
Okay, that works for me, I think. And then what would you recommend? Would you recommend still doing a 2-hour meeting, or also to, of course, Rosmari and Gudasol, if you have any thoughts about this, feel free to jump in. Happy to hear your thoughts. But I'm curious, both Tadas and Eric, you both, or I know Tadas mentioned shortening the time. Do you think it's best to keep 2-hour meetings? Or I know Gudasol does hour and 20 minutes. He says that there's some studies that show that's a good time for options. In fact, we've been doing an hour, maybe an hour and a half is kind of a way where we still have more time, but we do it a little bit shorter. Does anybody have any preference there about keeping the same time length or changing it?
I would make the business meeting an hour, and then have a network conversation, so the people who want to contribute at a don't have time can get in, add their value, and get out.
Okay, so you recommend having an hour meeting every week, and we'd play the respect game, so there wouldn't be a formal Cagendas game anymore in this situation. But
it would just alternate between respect and Cagendas, but I don't think we're ready for Cagendas. I think we're respect on ideas on what I think we need better things to feed Cagendas.
well, I'd say one difficulty with that, or one problem with that, would be that Cagendas is currently the way that we would approve proposals to change things. So, I mean, I suppose we don't need to have a full Cagendas game every week for a half hour, an hour, or something like that, but we still need the ability to be able to make a proposal and pass a proposal if we do want to approve a mission or approve something else.
And I'm just saying that add a respect game for the ideas that go into Cagendas. So I think it goes reward the people that are making this work, but then reward ideas, turn those ideas into Cagenda proposals. I'm just saying you can use this idea of discussions before you put something into Cagendas. We're missing a discussion part of an idea. It just kind of like, oh, here's an idea, vote yes or no. And so I'm saying we can experiment, because I did an experiment with the art fractal that worked pretty good. I mean, one thing that came out of that process was the realization that the art organization wasn't as much about art as it was about artists. And from that came a proposal to change the name from the Art Association to the Artist Association. And that passed, and it is now the Artist Association. So that's an example. Is, how do we get to that? Well, it was that discussion of what is the number one thing that you think we should do to change, improve, whatever. And people put ideas, and we ranked those and had that discussion. And so my point is, somebody didn't think of that out of the blue and propose that. It came from the discussion that evolved from that process that I'm just talking about. I'm not saying you have to do that process, but I just believe there needs to be, I just don't believe decision-making points come out of nowhere very often. They can, but I think more often there's a discussion part where those come out and where you get comfortable with that, and everybody's kind of already, when a proposal come in, everybody should already kind of be aligned. It shouldn't just come out of left field. Because the first thing that happens is people go, wait a minute, we haven't discussed that. Wait a minute, I don't understand that. Wait a minute. I mean, we've seen that over and over as we've had that.
Well,
with Cagendas, you could propose a topic, not a proposal, where basically a proposal to discuss when we would use a meeting to discuss, and then another meeting to pass it.
Yeah, like for example, Cagendas could say, oh, we should have a discussion about vision, and then you could play the respect game for visions. And as that kind of comes to, then you could go in and people could then put that in and say, okay, let's vote about vision. So actually it could start with Cagendas to discussion to Cagendas.
Right.
But I'm saying probably the problem with starting that for me is Cagenda. Should we talk about this? Yes or no? Should we talk about that? Yes or no? I think it's more like if everybody puts what we should discuss and that gets ranked, you reach a consensus over what should be discussed, as opposed to everybody put in a thing, vote yes or no. Just an idea.
Well, two things I'll share here. One, in defense of me just putting up proposals for yes or no right before, I do view proposals as just questions. I think that people sometimes tend to think of proposals as like this big fancy thing, and to some extent they are, because they're like a bit more formal than questions. But the way I view it is just like questions to friends, basically. And all we're doing here is we're expressing opinions. So I don't think there's anything wrong with anybody putting up a proposal to say, hey, should we do this for the first time?
I think you just made my point. My point is how do you get the right question? I'm a firm believer that the questions are as important as the decision. So if you ask the wrong question, or if your question isn't, you got to get the question right. So if I just said, should we give Dan a raise? Yes or no? That's a question. Well, it's just a question among friends. But that's not really what we're saying, is how do we best reward Dan? And the answer may not be a raise. The answer may be more assistant. It may be help, like when I took two interns, it turns out what they wanted more than me paying them was me personally marketing what they wanted, which was worth more money to them. So the question was, how do you reward them, not how do you pay them? So I'm saying if you just start with a question in one person's mind, it tends to be you're missing a lot of nuances. So whatever it is, I'm just saying we should think about ways to help each other make our questions better. That's all. And not so binary, not so yes or no.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you want to get to that yes or no at some point, but I think it's often, questions are often flawed when you just start with a yes or no question. My first company exploded because I had a guy that believed so much in He just believed you go down the check is yes or no, yeah, and that's how he firmly believed. He firmly believed that the way you run a company is you get everybody together and you make a series of yes or no decisions based on some chart that, oh, how do businesses run, and we couldn't get around that. And quite frankly, because I went and talked to my friends that were running successful companies, and none of them did that. So go, why would we do something that's not working for us and hasn't worked for anybody I know who's successful? Oh, that's the way it's done. So that's why I might be a little more sensitive to that, because it was a painful learning experience for me. Because
Okay.
then I would bring up the answer, say, well, that's, should we do this? Yes or no? And I said, well, you haven't really explored the question. Like,
So
what do we, some things we needed to solve before we can even get there. Anyway, go ahead.
so what if we play the respect game to choose a question, and then next week we play a respect game to answer that question, and then the next week we play again the respect game to choose the next question for next week?
Yeah, that's
Well-
basically what I'm saying.
Well, maybe so a couple thoughts. One, I've wanted to make Cagendas for a long time, improve and gamify it more, where there is like awards for making good questions, which would help improve that. And so far, it's just been mostly me making the questions, or sometimes like Tadas or a few other people made questions, but we still haven't had that incentive and that award structure to award questions, because that would enable the wisdom of the crowd to just pop up, and whichever question gets the most votes, then that is the one that gets elected. So that's the idea of Cagendas originally, but we haven't quite gotten there yet. In the meantime, there is an issue about how do you decide the question to play during the respect game, which you were just mentioning there. And I suppose one way we could do that is maybe if we just had it in the respect game, kind of like how we choose a delegate at the end of the respect game, we also choose a question, or perhaps the delegate is the person who chooses the question, or perhaps or that's separate from the delegate. But maybe that's one way to do it, where, because Tadas is suggesting about having a respect game for the question and then a respect game to answer the question, stuff like that. I can imagine that being like a fairly long and drawn out. But maybe we can condense that by having a respect game where in 1 week you play the respect game, and I suppose it could be the regular respect game, and then at that meeting you also are doing the question. But then again, if you have two groups, then how do you decide which question is better for the next week too, or more than two groups too? So there are some kind of engineering issues in determining which is the question for each week. I suppose you could also just determine it by our current Cagendas game, where every other week you could have a Cagendas vote deciding what the question is, and whichever one gets the most votes. And if only one person makes the poll for the question, again, that happens to the question, but everybody also has an opportunity to make their question and propose it, and then whichever one gets more votes. I'll pass it on to Das.
Yeah, I believe like it's playing respect game to choose a question is not too much, I think. Yeah, I believe like also that choosing the right question is like key, and how do you phrase a question is key. Like I've experienced this in life, like multiple times. I have some confusion about something. I think about how to ask another person. I try to formulate a sentence, and then the answer becomes obvious just by formulating the question the right way. So that's why I think respect game for reaching consensus on a question, that might be a really interesting experiment and might be worth it.
Yeah. The real process is, here's some questions, and then how do we make those questions better? And that's what you want to use the crowd on. So anybody can put out ideas for questions, but the real question is, no matter how we do it, whether it's Cagendas or respect or something else, is how do we determine what questions are important to us, most important to us? And the other thing is, how do you rank those? So it's a ranking problem first. And then the other thing is, how do we make that question that we think is important better? So that's the first step, is what questions do we think important? And of those questions we think is important, how do we make that question as good as it can be? And sometimes it's a simple process because, oh yeah, that question's obvious. We all have it. Yeah, go. But sometimes it's not. So you don't always, it isn't always a difficult process, but sometimes it really is.
Yeah, but personally, I think what Eden Fractal needs right now is, I don't think we need to play normal respect game. Like I think we need it could use more of like this kind of things, thinking like what are our questions, what is our mission, and so on. And then we could do a series of these events for, I don't know, a couple of months, and then we prepare the next season where we play the normal respect game again. Meanwhile, if people want to play a normal respect game right now, we could go to Optimism Fractal, for example. And I think if your goal is to grow fractal communities, then that goal encompasses growing Optimism Fractal as well. And yeah, by growing Optimism Fractal, you grow optimism, and that is aligned with mission of Optimism Fractal. So it could be nice balance. So in your model, Eric, it would be like Optimism Fractal would provide a constant balance with normal respect game, and then for Eden Fractal we will try to build up the next season more, so that then we can play the respect game on Eden Fractal again. Just an idea. But either way, even if we don't alternate like that, I think, yeah, Eden Fractal could use more of this kind of games where we try to figure out what we want to do rather than normal respect game.
I agree, and that's a good point. I think those are very good points. And yeah, there's some things that clicked for me as you're saying that. So we do have the Optimism Fractal, we're playing the respect game, and to some extent, like our at least for Tadas and Rosmari and myself, we've been kind of like working in both directions, and it's been a little bit difficult to focus as much attention as we want on Eden Fractal. And I think that would maybe make sense that like we're hosting the respect game at Optimism Fractal, so everybody's welcome to join there, of course. And then for Eden Fractal, what I think might make most sense, rather than trying to prescribe in advance, like a schedule of going back and forth between respect game and Cagendas, or respect game, normal respect game, or respect game for mission, or respect game for vision, or whatever it is. I think what might make the most sense is we say, basically we could just figure out the topic for Eden Fractal. Maybe if we reduce the meeting down to 1 hour for like the official meeting, like Eric was suggesting for Eden Fractal going forward, at least for the remainder of this season, or at least until we make another proposal to change it back to 2 hours or an hour and a half or whatever it may be in the future. We could, since we have enough people, delegates here, if we want to make a proposal to change the time to 1 hour going forward, and then we have it where we use Cagendas to decide the topic of each game, or the topic of each week. And that topic could be respect game. If we want to play respect game, then that could be it. And perhaps that could even be the default if we have no topics proposed and we just play the respect game. But otherwise we could say, we could propose a topic, we just have an open discussion, like kind of like we did today, or we can propose a topic where we play the respect game for deciding the question, or we play a respect game to determine a specific question like the mission or the vision or something like that. And basically that can be decided on a week-to-week basis using the Cagendas game we already have. So from there we can decide week by week what we want to discuss. And I suppose, and I agree, going forward, like playing the respect game, it's not the highest priority, at least the traditional respect game for Eden Fractal right now, because we all know that we're like, we all respect each other a lot, and we all know that we're doing great work for helping fractal communities, but that's not currently what the community needs the most. I think what the community needs the most right now is, like, I agree, experimenting with the respect game to figure out the mission and figure out the vision and figure out the goals and all these different things, figure out our strategy going forward, and using the respect game, experimenting with the respect game in this new way. I think that's a really great way to organize these coming meetings. And so that's what I'd suggest or propose. I see Tadas giving thumbs up. I'm curious if anybody has other perspective about this. What do you say if we shorten meetings to an hour, and then going forward, we have it where it's just Cagendas. I don't know if that's what we call it, but basically we use the Cagendas process, and then we from there we propose what kind of respect game we'll play to decide the question or decide the mission or whatever it is. Or if we wanted to do a regular respect game, then that's always an option if we want to propose that. Or if we wanted to have an open discussion, that's also an option too.
When you say to play the respect game to decide on the topic, like how are we gonna do that? Are we still gonna rank each other's as topics, or for next week? Is that how it will go?
Yeah, so, well, I suppose there's two different ways. So one that was suggested by Tadas is playing the respect game to determine the question for next week, I think, which is one option where I think in all these situations, we would rank each other's topics, just like we rank each other contributions. We'd rank each other topics and say, if I decided to say, hey, let's discuss the mission, and Eric said, let's discuss the vision, and Tadas said, let's discuss the goal or whatever it is, or Gudasol said, let's discuss dogs. And then we decide Gudasol's got the best idea, so we discuss dogs. Then Gudasol will be 6, and I'd be 4, and Tadas will be 5, and so forth or whatever. Love dogs. And then, but alternatively, and I'm still not totally sold on the idea because I feel like that might be complex. And I don't know, like, I agree it's worthy to spend a lot of time thinking of the question, but still spending a whole hour on deciding the question seems like it might not be the most efficient way to do it. So what I might propose is just
that would be ideally, because really we want to make these things fast. We're going to get wide adoption. Needs to be 2 things: fast and easy. So, I think giving people, like we do now, 3 minutes to say, here's what topic I think is important, and then you do the process that we already do. But what I like about that is having one process is a lot easier than having multiple. As soon as you change and say, oh, we're going to do that, it's very tough to get adoption. So why I like this experiment is because if we teach people to do respect as the first tool that we have in our arsenal, then having them come up with decision making, it's not that big a stretch to say, okay, now I need to teach you to do Cagendas, because while the respect is pretty well received, Cagendas is not. Most people don't play. It doesn't get a lot. We're constantly hounding people. So, if you're looking at this transition of taking a new group and you teach them first to play the respect game, how do you get them to do Cagendas? Although Space Wrangler Joe has had good luck doing Cagendas, but he had to really use, force of personality to make that happen.
Well, my thinking here is just that, you need some form of Cagendas, whether you call it or not Cagendas, just to determine what the topic would be from week to week. Otherwise, you just stick with one consistent respect game, or you have to prescribe something way far in advance and determine this would be this and this would be that and so forth. And so it's okay if just one person makes a topic. If nobody else has other preference about what topic to discuss, I suppose that can be done during the meeting too. But Cagendas just kind of gives it a formal process, and we already have that in place. So
I'm just saying it's not working like we hope it works. That's all. That's just feedback. We want this. It'd be great if everybody jumped on it, but mostly what we get is we try and beat people to make it work, and we don't get the participation. So whatever we're doing isn't working the way we want it to work. That's my point.
I see your point, Eric, and I think I agree that there is a lot of potential to improve the process by which we choose questions. But right now, I think we have to start with Cagendas, and because that's our consensus process right now. So I think our first priority should be, like, right now, to pass a proposal to change a structure for next meeting at least. And then if we don't change the structure even more this meeting, then for the next meeting we will have to play with Cagendas until we change the process by which we choose questions formally. At least that would be formally the. Although I don't think that anybody would care much if we did something else, but.
And that to me, it's just that question then is, how can we make this process of decision making using Cagendas or not better? Because I'm just going over the feedback we've had. It hasn't had the success we would like it to have. So this isn't a criticism or learning.
Yeah, but my thinking is that we have to use the process that we already have decided on.
Yeah, I'm not arguing with you.
Yeah,
I'm not at all. I'm not arguing that. I'm just saying the right question is, how do we make that process easier to implement and easier to transition new organization? I'm thinking about new organizations. If we're having trouble with it, imagine we expose somebody else to it and do it. So the question is just, how do we make that easier to implement and more successful? And I don't know what the answer is.
Yes, I agree. But just to make my point clearer, I think we have to use our current consensus process.
Yeah.
To change to pass the next consensus process.
Yeah. Yeah. Not arguing. Not arguing with you at all. I'm just thinking long term, because that's where I go first. I think we bring somebody in, we teach them Cagendas. That seems to be very successful. All right, we teach them respect game. That seems to be successful. At some point we say, how do we smoothly transition them to something that works better and easier than what we're doing now? And it's not that hard, but it's just, I'll give you an example. So once we were doing marketing, we had this deal where we could sell Mexican vacations at a great deal. I mean, the deal was so amazing. The video's still on here. I can show you the video of this program we had. You look at it and you go, why wouldn't anybody want this? And we found a list, because we were marketers, of people who'd taken a Mexican vacation last year, and we sent it to them with this great value. And we thought people would go for it. We even showed that to people, and they said, oh yeah, this is a great friggin' deal. And we got disappointing signups. And so I went back and analyzed that. We asked people, and it turned out the value just wasn't clear. So we went back to them the next day and said, we noticed you didn't like this one deal, so we've got this new deal for you. It's even better, and we're giving you a $200 certificate. It was the same friggin' deal. We just physically gave them a certificate. And we got like 80 today. My point is, it should have been easy the first time. There's no reason people shouldn't have it. We had no indications. We loved it. But the only indication I have is for other people it wasn't working. So we had to do something to change that. We found maybe it's simple. Maybe it's a really simple thing. I don't know. I just know we have to make it better if we want this thing to grow like we want it to grow. And I'm okay with using Cagendas to make Cagendas better.
Yeah, I agree. From my perspective, there is a huge potential in Eden process and Fractal process to make these choices about questions. So I would like to experiment there. But regarding what to do now, I'd say we could pass a proposal for the next. We could pass a proposal to play only Cagendas game 1 hour or more, but at least 1 hour for the next week. And I or someone else will put up a proposal for Cagendas during the next week to discuss this, like how do we choose a question or something, or something like that. But at least for the next week, I think we don't have a lot of time. We should pass it right now if we want to change something.
Yeah, okay, we have 13 minutes left for now to pass a proposal, and I'm pretty much in agreement with Tadas, and also appreciate Eric's thoughts. I just wrote out something that I could put up on Consortium that we could propose and approve, and I went at it from a little bit different angle than you did there, Tadas, but similar idea. What I wrote was, I propose the following: Eden Fractal meetings will last 1 hour from 16 to 17 UTC, so that's changing the time amount. And then a 45-minute respect game will be the default if no proposals are created on Consortium. So that's still, if there's no proposal, then we'll still just do the regular respect game. And a proposal can be created on Consortium to choose an alternative agenda, such as experimenting with respect game to decide on topics or choosing a mission. And that follows the standard rules of Cagendas to determine the topics. So a little different than you said, in that the respect game is still the default. In case nobody does, I'm pretty sure that I will, or you will, or somebody will put up the proposal to change that, and because I think it's a good idea to do a different kind of respect game or a different kind of discussion. I'm also curious too, by the way, Rosmari asked before what how the respect game would work. I'm curious because Eric jumped in, if that answered your question, or if you still had any questions or comments about that as well.
I think the comment that I have is with regards to, I agree with it might be good to experiment with using Cagendas game. From what I understood, using the Cagendas game where each proposes a question to discuss for next time. Maybe I'm thinking, instead of doing this in each meeting, we can decide on a question to discuss for the next few meetings or over a period of time, so that it saves us time to decide on the question on each meeting. And that question could be like just what's more important for the most important for us to tackle right now and to discuss or contribute like our ideas towards. So we could basically turn it into something like of a kind of like a cycle to decide on what to focus on for the next few meetings, but also might work with every meeting. But I'm just thinking, if we decide on the question for 45 minutes and the meeting is 1 hour, when are we actually gonna talk about it? If the next meeting we're gonna do the same process?
No, we should then, next meeting, we should try to answer the question. But I think we should not get ahead of ourselves, and today only pass a proposal on what we do next meeting. Then where did I can't find your poll on Consortium?
I haven't put it on Consortium yet. I just wrote that in the chat. I can repeat it if you want. If you have any feedback about a different way that should be worded, then let me know, and I can put it up on Consortium after some feedback.
I don't know if we need to default on a respect game. We could just do what we do now, like free discussion.
Yeah, just free discussion. Okay, so I'll remove that part. So I'll repost it without that part there. I agree, that makes sense.
Yes, I agree with that.
Okay. Cool. I can put it up. I also agree with that. I think it's a good way to go forward. And of course, we can always change it next week too. But I think it's a good step that would help us do it better. I'm curious, Eric, Gudasol, and Rosmari. Well, to Rosmari's point too, I'll do it quick because we don't have so much time. But yeah, I agree with Tadas's point that we don't have to get ahead of ourselves. I think that one option is that we choose a topic each week. And that's the goal of the respect game. But to me, it seems like it makes more sense to pick a topic in advance and say, like, put a poll up on Consortium and say, let's discuss who has the best mission, for example, during the respect game. And then for that example, we have the topic decided, and so that would be the goal of the game. Everybody would bring in what they think is the mission, and then we'd rank the mission, basically. So we have the option, and that could be proposed in Cagendas, basically. So I hope that answers or helps clarify for you, Rosmari, and curious if you still have any thoughts about it, or Eric, Gudasol, and Rosmari, if you're in agreement with this proposal, or think it'd be better to do it in any different way going forward. Oh, and then and also to Rosemary's point too, I think that planning it in advance of future weeks also can be very good, but this is enabled by the system basically, because there's nothing stopping people from proposing a topic on Consortium in Cagendas for 2 weeks from now or 3 weeks from now or whatever. We just haven't been doing it because it's kind of difficult to schedule in advance. We've been busy. But if anybody wants to go ahead and make a grander curriculum, or I don't know, curriculum is the right word, but agenda for the next 4 weeks or whatever, then they could do that, and it'd be up to people to vote each week to week if they want to do that. So far as it is, people mostly haven't been putting up a proposal, so there's a good chance that it would be discussed if you did want to put up something that you had in mind for this weekend and future weeks.
Yeah, so what do others think about this proposal for the next meeting? Second message from Dan in the Zoom chat.
Just to repeat it, it's Eden Fractal meeting. I propose that Eden Fractal meetings will last for 1 hour from 16 to 17 UTC. A proposal can be created on Consortium to choose an alternative agenda, such as experimenting with the respect game to decide topics or choosing a mission. This will follow the standard rules of Cagendas to determine the agenda for each meeting. Which is basically...
That's fine. I'm okay with that.
Okay. And just to be clear, for anyone who's not familiar, that's just posted on Consortium, and then whichever one gets the most votes is the one that gets picked. Was something else you're going to say there, Eric?
Nope.
Okay. And I think I saw Gudasol give a thumbs up. Gudasol's not a delegate, but would still appreciate hearing your opinion if you want to voice your opinion. And so I haven't heard from Rosmari if you're in agreement with this, or if you have any issues, I think it should be changed, Rosmari.
I think it looks good. It's just that a proposal can be created on Consortium to choose an alternative agenda, such as experimenting with the respect game to set topics or choose a mission. Oh, okay.
I suppose I should also change the word alternative, because now there's not that word doesn't make sense. It should just be choose an agenda.
An alternative agenda, you mean? Or...
I just removed the alternative. That was there because I had the previous sentence about the respect game will be the default. But now it just says a proposal can be created in a consortium to choose an agenda, such as experimenting with respect game to decide topics or choosing a mission.
Wasn't that how it was before anyway? Anyone can create a proposal to choose an agenda.
Yeah, the changes in that the meeting is only 1 hour and we only play Cagendas.
Previously, there was always the first hour was respect game, and then there was Cagendas, and now it's just Cagendas for 1 hour. And within that, you can choose to play the respect game.
Yeah,
or you can choose to do other things.
Yeah, maybe the proposal could be simplified, because all we are doing is we are getting rid of the respect game part, and
for now.
Yeah, for now. Yes, right.
And I've got another meeting to run in a half hour. I'm getting tired. I'm good with this. Are we good to go?
Okay, I'm good too.
Okay.
I'm
All right, Dan.
Cool. I'm good too.
And I'll see you in a half hour, Dan.
All right, I'll see you there. I suppose I'll put it up on Consortium too, just to make it extra official. And if everybody could vote there, I'd appreciate it. But I suppose it's not necessary to, though. And do you have any thoughts? Do you think I should put it up to make it official, or should we just go with it from the voice call?
I think it's enough from the voice call. If someone has any disputes, they will have proof, enough of proof. But I don't think anyone will care.
Okay,
all right.
Sounds good. I'll put it up on there just in case, and I'll just vote yes for it. And if anyone else wants to, then you can, I suppose. Because I already have it up there. Okay, cool. Well, thanks all for the great meeting. I don't know if anybody else has any other last thoughts. I know Eric's again. Thanks so much, Eric. Looking forward to seeing you at the C4G Center for Governance Proposal Workshop. And yeah, I'll be there in a half hour and recommend people to check it out. As I said before, also recommend everybody to invite friends and join us for Eden Fractal meetings every Wednesday at 16 UTC, now for just an hour going forward. And then also recommend people to join Aqueduct on Tuesdays at 16 UTC for great mastermind sessions, and check out the videos on Eric's YouTube channel, on Eden Creator's YouTube channel, on the Aquarius YouTube channel. Check out all the awesome stuff that we're doing as well at Optimism Fractal on Mondays at 17 UTC. You can learn more optimismfractal.com, as well as lou.ma/aqueduct, all the stuff I showed before, as well as lou.ma/Eden Fractal and edenfractal.com. Does anybody else have any last thoughts before we wrap it up, or any closing remarks?
See you next week, guys.
See you
And-
next
See you
week.
next week.
Thanks so much, everybody, and go Eden Fractal. See you later.
Go Eden Fractal.
Go Eden Fractal.
All right.
Woohoo.
All right. Thanks all. See you.
Bye.
All right.